What it is, y'all, it's Maul here from the Gym Therapy Pod. In this episode of Technical Tuesdays, we're going to be talking about IPOs. So let's first start off with what an IPO is and what it stands for. So an IPO stands for Initial Public Offering. And so basically what that is you taking your privately owned company and taking it public. And so once your company is public, that means literally everything that you do, conduct via business is available to the public. So you can't hide anything. You have to showcase your finances. You have to showcase who's on your board, who's not on your board. You have to basically showcase everything to the public and to the investors, the shareholders, to show that your company is doing what it needs to do, holding certain standards, becoming profitable, and things of that nature. So you have a lot of privately held companies that aren't, they're making a lot of money maybe, but they aren't publicly traded on a New York Stock Exchange, right? So again, when you take your company public, you're participating in an IPO. And there are other ways that you can take your company public. You can do like a direct listing, and it's just numerous amounts of ways. But the well-known, the best way, honestly, as research shows, is to go with the IPO or go with an initial public offering. So I want to talk about two companies that one just went public and the other did not just go public. One company that went public was Kava, which I believe we're all familiar with. They did pretty well on their IPO last week. And then Reddit, which is a very interesting story, which I'll give more detail on, is planning to go public sometime this year or next year, but very, very soon. So let's start with Reddit because Kava's good. So let's start with Reddit. So we all know Reddit is like a communication platform, a big blogging spot. Well, not really blogging, but let's call it a blogging spot. And they have, I think, over 500 million subscribers or users on a daily basis. So they have a really, really big community. It's been around for 10 plus years. And now they're making this stride to want to go public and take their company public. Another cool thing about Reddit is that it's one of the biggest data warehouses or data repositories out here, like outside of Google. And that's where a lot of like LLM models or AI products or even like Google search or SEO optimization products are built from or built off of, is Reddit's large database of data, right? And so the thing that's going on with Reddit is that they want to go public, but the main thing is they're having a strike or a blackout period right now. And what's constituting this blackout period is the new API changes. And so I won't get into what an API is or the details of that, but basically they're going to charge, I think, $12,000, $13,000, let's just say $15,000 in order to use their API. And so what their API gives anybody to use is access to their data, right? So let's say I'm a moderator and I have a subreddit and I'm following like gaming or something of that nature, right? Let's just say gaming for this example. And so let's say, hey, I want to build a product or build a newsletter or just build something utilizing the API in this community so that I can monetize my product utilizing Reddit's API function, right? And so Reddit's like, hey, we aren't profitable and we need to start bringing in profit. And one way for us to really start bringing in profit is to basically sell our data for users to use. And the bad thing about that is one of their top users, I forget the name of the application that he created, but he's basically said that I make, let's say, $500,000 a year, but with the new API changes, it's going to cost me $20 to $30 million a year to run this application. So subsequently, I'm going to have to shut this application down because I simply cannot afford it because of the new API charges or changes, right? And so Reddit is basically saying, hey, we house the biggest data sets in the world, and we're basically letting people use it for, let's say, a small fee or even free, right? And so they want to get paid for their data, which I believe is going to be, well, not even be the future. I believe that's happening now. Look at things like GPT-4, different companies that have used, like you have access to their APIs and they're charging you for that, right? And so I think over 7 million subreddits or subreddits threads have gone dark, and they have almost 8 million. So like almost 90% of subreddits have gone dark because of this API change. And so how that pertains to an IPO is investors are like, hey, we want this company to become profitable, but we are looking at what's going on in the landscape of what's happening to your product, like what's going on, how can we combat this? Because we want to take this company public. And so the investors and the people who got in to Reddit early on and invested in the company early on in the private sector can make a lot of money on the upside. Investors like, hey, will this, like not necessarily like stop the IPO, but will this affect us going public? Because a lot of people on Reddit are revolting. And so a company prior to Reddit, actually this is where Reddit was not really founded off of, but what Reddit did or got the idea of becoming Reddit was a company called Dig. And what killed Dig basically was the same thing that's going on with Reddit. The users went on a protest, and the protest inevitably destroyed the company. And the company is still around, but it's not what it once was. And then Reddit jumped in and said, hey, we're gonna take the opportunity to, you guys falling off, we're gonna jump in, and Reddit became what it is. And so it's a very, very, very interesting story that I'm still, keeping up with. But I wanted to mention that as it pertains to an IPO, because these are things that investors look at when taking the company public or going public, things of this nature. How can the company that's not profitable become profitable in the near future? And if this is the way for them to become profitable, how can we monetize this, not only to the millions of users on our platform, but how can we do this for other companies, right? And so Reddit has a situation that they had to figure out before they go public. But this is an interesting story because let's say they do go public, who knows, will their stock shoot up on the first day or will it go down because of this? So that's a good story and that's a good example. And the reason I want to talk about IPOs is so I can speak about the Reddit situation and then Kava having a successful IPO in the restaurant industry, which is very hard. The only other restaurant that I can think of that's doing very or extremely well on the market is Chipotle. And so for Kava to do well, and I think they're like 38, 39 bucks right now, still doing pretty well on the market after their IPO. That's a good sign for the market. So you have two different companies. One is doing well with the IPO, one is fighting to have their IPO going on with this blackout period. And so again, it's very interesting. But the main goal with the IPO or initial public offering is to make sure that the company displays profitability over the course of being public and in the near future, and consistently being profitable so that they can pay back their investors, and their investors can make more money, we can make more money, and the owners of or CEO and founders of the company can make more money, and their stock price can continue to rise, right? And so yeah, so that kind of concludes what I wanted to speak about as it pertains to IPOs. I think next week I want to talk about valuations, since I spoke about IPOs this week. So next week we'll talk about valuations and how that goes and what that actually is and how that's important to a company going public as well. So as always, tap in with us. We dropping content every single day, every single week. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, go on our YouTube, send it to everybody, put it on your story, do whatever you got to do to keep us in your algorithm. So thank you all, and for tuning in to another episode of Technical Tuesdays.